I want to talk to you a little bit about the story called Continual Self-Exorcism from my second book, XLZABK002, also known as John Zaremba Book 2 or The Blue Book. This story, Continual Self-Exorcism, it's a story about a swordsman named Ionair. Ionair is the Gaelic word for individual or singular or solitary. And Ionair's nemesis is Gach Rud. Gach Rud is the Gaelic word for everything or all. Essentially, the world, the universe, existence is Gach Rud. And if you've read any of my stories in the past, there's a lot of stories I've written that deal with the plight of the individual versus the collective. In many of those stories, it's kind of like the collective or existence, if you will, is against the individual for the collective's own good. It's like a nemesis for the sake of being a nemesis, evil for the sake of evil, if you will. Continual self-exorcism is different because the plight that Ionair faces is perhaps reaped by Gach Rud, everything, but it's his own fault. He's possessed, and his possession leads to his downfall, but he welcomed that possession. So it's kind of a different take on the themes that I write about frequently. I think there's a trend nowadays where everyone is a victim of one thing or another. And in my opinion, and what I try to explain through this story, is that in most cases, the victim is to blame for what befalls him. And the story is about a swordsman who is in the continual process of purging himself of the demons that have harmed him in his life, and what that means to him and in terms of the overall meaning of life. So what is the meaning of life? It's a question that is asked throughout the story. And Ionair determines that the answer to that question, the meaning of life, is to justify one's existence to existence. And Ionair does that in the story by purging himself from the demons, purging himself of the demons that have plighted him. And in doing so, he thwarts the ambitions of Gach Rud. He defies the ambitions of the universe, of everything, of life itself, by continuing to make himself better and purging himself of these demons. The story also deals with the concept of familiars. And I find the concept of familiars from pagan mythology pretty fascinating. So familiars in pagan mythology, well, I guess they do take different forms, but they could be defined in different ways. A lot of times they are described as advisors or helpers of a figure, a character, if you will. And they could be sent from somewhere else to guide this particular figure towards along a path of, I don't know, actualization or transformation of some sort. And I think that's interesting, and I think it's interesting that they're called familiars for that purpose. But during I guess, the days of the Inquisition, the term familiars took another meaning. And in that era of history, a familiar was someone that pointed the finger on behalf of the church, on behalf of the state, pointed a finger at those that needed to be purged of demons or possession, or needed to be punished or eliminated for the benefit of the church. So they would become close to somebody, get to know somebody. They could even be family of somebody. And they would understand that that person is not aligned with the ambitions of the church or of the state, and they would basically rat them out. So that's another way of explaining what a familiar is from that perspective. And I wanted to bring both meanings of the term familiar, both the ancient pagan meaning as well as the meaning from the Inquisition, into this story and show that they're kind of sort of the same thing, that oftentimes those that wish to be advisors to you, those that wish to help you and guide you along this path of life, are not what they seem. They may in fact be spies or agents of the state or agents of the church or agents of God, if you will. And that's not always in your best interest as an individual. So that's a little bit about Continual Self-Exorcism. It's another story of mine that's based on a song that I recorded ages and ages and ages ago. Shoot, I'm trying to remember what album that was on. I think that was on Solifugai. I think that was on Solifugai. I'm pretty sure. I like the song, and this whole book is an inverse of the first book, the red book, XLZABK001. And the first story of the first book was about accepting demonic possession, succumbing to it, giving into it, at the hands of Vade in that case. And this second story, being the inverse, the blue to the red, is about defying that possession and doing so for your own self-interest, conquering it, conquering your own demons, becoming better without the aid of somebody else. Continual Self-Exorcism from XLZABK002. The book will be out in February, and I encourage you to read it. Bye.